So while we are waiting, I will just briefly introduce the logistics of this panel, right? It's a great pleasure to invite everyone to attend this alumni career panel that focus on the diverse career paths after obtaining a bachelor degree at UMD. So this career panel offers an opportunity for the current undergraduate students to interact with alumni who are recent UMD graduates to gain firsthand information and practical advice on various career paths after graduation. The panelists that we have today are Han, Sona, and Michael. And at the beginning of this career panel, I will let each of our panelists to have a brief self-introduction. And following by that, I will ask general questions to each of them. And then for the last half of the panel, we will create an informal and a respectful discussion. Everyone are welcome to leave their questions in the chatting room or simply raise up their hands so that you can have direct conversation to each of the panelists. And now it's 12:02. I think we have a crowd already here. And then just a reminder, this panel will be recorded so that if people or undergrads who cannot be here, they will still have the chance to get the information. So let's get started. Who wanna go first to introduce themselves? How about Michael?
All right, hello everybody. My name is Michael Dubbin. I graduated from University of Maryland in May 2019. I didn't get an undergraduate in geology. I got one in environmental science and policy, but my concentration had me housed sort of halfway in the geology department. So I had a lot of experience, taking those sorts of classes. While at University of Maryland, I worked in a biogeochemistry lab for a couple of years, working on water chemistry. And then I graduated and went into the private sector, working on phase 1 environmental site assessments. I did that for about 9 months. Then I transitioned to the Food and Drug Administration, where I currently work now as a biologist. I do have a quick disclaimer I have to say. So my views expressed here today do not necessarily represent the views of the FDA nor the United States government. And that's me.
Great, thank you. How about Han?
Yeah, so many people know me by different names. So my full name is Jeng Han, then my last name is Chong. So wherever you call, and then some people know me by my nickname too. But I also graduated from Maryland in 2019. I graduated as a geology major, and then I was focusing on geology, but I was doing my research mostly focusing on geology or geophysics in general. And I'm currently finishing up my master's at California State University Northridge in Los Angeles here, California. And I'm originally from Malaysia, so I transferred during my junior year as an international student to Maryland. And then in the future, in a couple of months, I'll be starting my PhD with one of advisor, also focusing on geology at University of New Mexico. And that's all. Yeah.
Congratulations, that's awesome. Let's hear about Sana.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sona Chaudhary. I graduated from UMD in spring 2020, and I got dual degrees in geology and English. And I currently work a few different jobs. So I'm a full-time physical scientist with the EPA under the Safe Drinking Water Division. And I specifically work with wells and Texas, Louisiana, Arizona, just like big drilling hotspots. And our program also is just like, big part of it's like permitting, part of it's just following up on like some of the kind of loosey-goosey stuff of like politics. It's a very like political minded job. I also have been working contract as like a technical writer for a UX design company, been a freelance reporter for a local paper in Dallas. And in college, I was doing like a similar kind of spread of stuff. I had interned in the communications department for both the National Park Service and the National Weather Service, and did my thesis kind of concentrated on geochemistry. So I was like trying to kind of keep this thread of like keeping two disciplines going.
Great, thank you. So the panelists here, they represent a diverse, a breadth of different career choice. We have Han to pursue in academic career. We have Michael and Sona, they pursue different jobs in the government and the industry. So the general question for the current undergrads will be, how did you end up picking the path that you are taking now? How did you find the current position? And this time, let's let Sona to start.
Yeah, I think it was like a big thing to like decide between grad school or going into like working, and it was like right up until the pandemic, I was like kind of on the fence. But I really didn't do well with the online learning environment, so I at least wanted like some time to get out, try something else, get a little less burnout on school. And yeah, I had to like just try to convince myself to like try to take anything. I was like, you know, I just want a job. I don't want to be picky. I just want to get experience. So I had thrown out applications all over the place, and I was really willing to. And it was like this back and forth because I was nervous to relocate, but I thought, you know, that was the best chance I had to move. I got the EPA offer at the beginning of March before lockdown started, and I thought I wouldn't take it because I didn't want to move to Dallas, and I thought I was like in a good situation here. But it was like this combination of just like things bouncing around in my personal life where, you know, like the situations that I thought were like so secure weren't really that good for me. And I was really young, and just like it took a lot of encouragement from my faculty even, and like my parents to be like, yeah, you'll be fine. You know, you're 21, just go out, give it a shot, and then you can always come back. So even with like this government position and like having the being really lucky to get it in a time when positions are kind of drying up, it was also just like it seemed like something to try. It seemed like a safe place to start to try something and like go out and try to be a real adult. And if it didn't work, then you know it was always not so dire. Like I could always come back. So just like with a really uncertain time in the world, that felt like a good move to make.
Thanks for sharing. How about Michael?
Yeah, my story is sort of similar in that, you know, there's always the decision whether you go to graduate school next or whether to get a job next. For me personally, I was ready to be done with academics at that point in my life. You know, it's you're 21, 22 years of school. I was ready to go out and do something else. So I applied to probably 40 jobs over the course of 5 months. Finally landed one with an environmental consulting company, a small company that does phase 1 environmental assessments, which, you know, I know a lot of geology people go to that sort of field, especially phase 2 environmental site assessments. So if anyone has any questions, you know, feel free to ask me about that. But yeah, basically that was the first interview I got. It took 5 months first, and I just thought, you know, I just need a job. It was tangential to what I'm interested in. But, you know, it's great just to get your foot in the door somewhere, start somewhere, and that's why I chose that first position. And then after that, I did that for about 9 months. The pandemic hit. Since it was a small company, they downsized and I was let go. But before that, I was networking, you know, trying to see what my next steps were. And I met with my current boss, my current supervisor, who at the FDA, who onboarded me and took me on. Yep.
Han, how about you?
Yeah, so it's like also pretty much different from Sona and Michael, but so I initially when I was here in the Maryland, I was thinking, should I go to industry because that seems like the most feasible way of the things I could do. Never thought that I could work in academia or anything like that. So after a while, going through a couple more classes, meeting more faculty and doing some more research, I just thought like, yeah, I'm interested in doing something like natural hazards and doing modeling, basically, geophysics. So I just thought, why not just try to go do more research and just try, because it seems like people are encouraging me. So I really had really great support in doing it. So I just thought like, yeah, I should just try and just do grad school and see how it goes. That's why I'm doing my master's now, for 2 years. If I don't like it, I could go to work after my master's. Otherwise, however it looks, well, whichever fits. So now I thought after doing a couple more research, I just thought, yeah, I really like doing research. I like having seeing something new, something different, and then testing different experiments, something like that. And just I liked it better. So now I know my path is I like to do research things more. It doesn't really matter where I go in the future, but I just hope to do research basically. And yeah, so that's why I'm still applying to graduate school in the future. So just to do more research basically.
So it sounds like when you're about to graduate, you need to first make listen to your own heart and figure out whether you like academic or industry job or government job more. But once you make that decision, how did you start to find resources? I know Michael mentioned that he applied for 40 different jobs, but where did you find those information? And how did you end up or even networking with your current boss?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. One is I would say a lot of people don't know whether they want to go into industry or academics before they graduate undergraduate. I know most people don't. So I'd say the first thing is that's okay. You're not alone in that. It takes time. It takes experience. That's why professors at university tell you to do a bunch of internships, not just one, but a diverse amount, because then you know what you like. So yeah, that'd be my first thing to say about that. The next thing is when I was applying to jobs, I didn't apply to just things that I was, passionate about. I would say, the people who get jobs that they really connect with right out of school are lucky, to be honest. So I applied to a whole bunch of different things. The thing that I did end up doing, phase 1 environmental site assessments, wasn't really as science heavy as I would have liked. It was really regulatory based. Yeah. So, but I guess to get back to the original question, the places that I looked are online job boards, things like Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn. Those are the best for like a general search. And then once you sort of get an idea of what you're looking for, at least what I did is I was typing keywords into Google. So something like, environmental restoration company in College Park, Maryland, something like that, just to try to narrow it down more. Another great resource is your advisor, whoever it is. I think it's Dr. Mark. I had 2 advisors. I had him and Angela Bazard-Gray in environmental science and policy. There's also they've had plenty of students come through. They know where they've gone. They can actually get you in contact with a couple of them. I think I might be on one of those boards. And just reach out to them. They'll tell you where to go. There's also the UMD Career Center, specifically for undergraduates to look at, where they can go next, the next step. So I used all of those resources when I was looking.
Wow, that's impressive. And also, Sana, I know now you are working on 3 different jobs. How did you end up getting here and manage your time or hear about all the resources?
Yeah, a lot of it is just kind of like letting yourself, try new opportunities. So the first job was like at this UX design company. I was interning there, and I had applied because I saw them advertising on Twitter. It was just like this like most niche thing, but it's like if you're looking out for it, yeah, you can find it. And also I didn't know what they did, but I had put in my application anyway. And it was really cool. They were like the skills I learned there about like business and like project management and stuff that's like just like really outside the realm of anything I did in school or even thought I'd be interested in. That like translated really well into like any kind of structured workplace. It's like you take the skills that you learn from just like working in the professional world, and then you can bring it around and like see what works. So yeah, like I think that experience was really valuable in like trying to communicate with the EPA and like in the government and say, oh, some of the stuff and the initiatives we're doing here that we try to take from like private industry and modernize or whatever is like not working here because X, Y, and Z, or I've seen it done really well in this kind of context. And so, yeah, they offered me a position once my internship period was up, and it was remote and it was a really good, like, it was just contract 8 hours a week. So I went for it. And the thing is, like, yeah, when you work this government job, you're not working any more than your like typical 40 hours. And I think like the remote workplace has been really great because it cuts out time on the commute, and like you're at home, you have the flexibility to try different things, to not get so burned out because you're also doing different things, trying new skills, and like using these different parts of your brain. And then the other thing is, yeah, so my favorite place to apply for jobs is LinkedIn. You should have like a Google Jobs alert set up for certain keywords just to like see everything. Because to me, it was like a numbers game. I was like sending out applications. I think I went up to like 70 or something when I was looking for like a full-time job. And you just have to see what sticks. Like, it's just really about broadening your scope enough and like removing the barriers to what's letting you apply. So like some people just, they slow down because they don't want to write cover letters. And like, I get that. There was a point where I stopped writing cover letters, or I would just send like the typical template, anything to just like keep going fast enough to, hit the large swath positions. But yeah, I think LinkedIn is a really, really good resource because you kind of end up, at the very least, it goes to a person when you apply on their website. And so sometimes I wouldn't get a job, but I would get a conversation. And that was the thing with the paper. It was like, oh, we had this like project and we hired someone else, but you sounded really interesting. Let's talk. Or as things like popped up, people keep you in mind. So yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff if you're like willing to, keep pulling a thread or like just keep showing up places. Yeah, so I'm just saying like, yeah, be really flexible with the opportunities. You might not know what you like until you try it. And also there's like really no harm in just trying out a few different things.
Thank you, Han.
Yeah, so so I did have a lot of support and help, like trying to apply for graduate school. Like I wouldn't know where to apply. Basically, like this, where I'm at now, like Northridge here, it was pretty much my last choice, and it's like there was like, I guess I should just apply. Basically, this was then I just applied, and I got it. So yeah, it was really of a also a lot of luck, and also make sure you know people well. Basically, what that means is just I will always ask for faculty for help. They will always help you. Basically, that's how I know a lot of people everywhere I go. And then because I was work with Jeng Han, so in the active tectonics lab, that time we have another grad student, Rebecca, that she helped me. She told me, hey, maybe you should try to apply this to this faculty here. So I did. I got it. So I really, for what I have is, I really have a lot of support. I did ask around a lot. And then maybe I also did some research for example, when I was doing the undergrad thesis, I know like this is somewhat the lines I want to do, which is just like natural hazards. So I just thought I just look up their papers that they have, their co-authors, and I just keep asking, basically, sending them emails and just asking around, because yeah, as an undergrad, you wouldn't know a lot of grad students apart from those that you have taken class with or within your lab group. So I think they are really the best, the stepping stone. The first step you could do is ask the grad students that you know and also the faculty that you know. They would definitely help you to expand your network. And then maybe if we have in-person or even virtual conferences, then you start meeting more people there, because I did meet a lot of new or possible faculty or advisors in the AGUs or these conferences. So that's where I also did met them there. I just had a chat with them, just like see how they are. And yeah, basically all I could say is I would always keep asking around and just try to get the support from Maryland itself, because they did help a lot, and just always ask the professor if they're taking students or not. So that's for more affirmative answer. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add two more things onto that real quick. One is exactly, what you just heard. Expand your network, talk to your network. I got my position at the FDA because I reached out to my current boss and said, hey, I'm looking to transition careers. How can I do, since you're an expert in the field, how can I do that? So we met. She told me, how I could do that. And then she offered me a job right there, just because, I reached out to my network. So I'd say that's a really big thing. Don't be afraid to, you see a company you like, or you see a graduate school you like, reach out to the people there, ask around. I've only run into nice people who are willing to help in my experience. So definitely do those. Don't be afraid. And the other thing, and I think this is what hangs a lot of people up, is don't be afraid to ask for resume help. Like when you're first graduating undergraduate, your resume is going to be thin. Most likely it's going to be pretty ugly. No one knows how to make a nice resume. So there's a resume help center on campus at the Career Center at University of Maryland. And you can go online and, hire people to do it if you want, for like a couple bucks. But yeah, get help. Companies and graduate schools know that you're an undergraduate, you're only 20, 21, whatever it is. And, yeah, get some help.
Yes, and graduate student and faculty member from the department are always a great resource, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to us, and we are all really nice. We don't bite people. We may invite you for free coffee instead. Yeah. So we do have several undergrads in current conversation, and we also will have undergrads watching our video. Your description of your current job will be important, which may inspire them to apply for the same job in the future. So what do you do nowadays on a daily basis? And then what do you find the most exciting or challenging part of your current position? Can you describe that? So Sona, you might?
Yeah, going to the EPA. Okay, so the way they did it, you applied to this position, and I was like physical scientist, whatever, and they set up a panel interview. And 30 minutes before the interview, they sent me a big Word document. They're like, these are all the divisions, and these are like the different like focus areas and what they do. And I barely had time to read it before they had the interview, and at the end, they're like, so which one do you want to do? And it was like really niche, right? Because it's all covered under like the Safe Drinking Water Act, Clean Air Act, but like all these different areas. And I think I said, something, I think I wanted to do water because it made sense to me, but they put me under underground injection control. And so the biggest like challenge there was just, it was so cross-disciplinary. Half my coworkers were engineers, and it wasn't just like that they knew wells construction, like this, like legislating for this thing that like I had never even seen before, but that they also knew the culture of like interacting with operators. So it was a big thing to kind of come from academia and being like, okay, so I understand like this is how a well interacts with the ground, and like these are the potential consequences and like this and that. But like it was figuring out what's an acceptable level of risk, what's like okay. Because when you come in, you're like, oh, that's an issue. I can identify issues. And I'm like, no, in actuality, it's hard to deny things. And it's also like just reasoning through in a totally new mode of like logic, right? It's like 3D thinking, but also, the whole time you're learning like what these different types of things are, what they're doing. They'll try to have classes and they'll try to have lectures and seminars and stuff to teach you, but like you really have to hear it like 8 times before it begins to make sense. So the learning process is just huge, and it's continual, and it takes longer than anything that you've like expected to find in school. Like my boss is like, oh, I got good at this after 4 years. My boss is really smart, so it's like to start, you have to like understand where you are, and then you have to find your niche, but you can't silo yourself too early. And so you just spend a lot of time feeling like you're really bad at things. And so it's just like finding the group of new people to be able to be like, yeah, we're really confused, and like some of these assignments come out of nowhere. It's just like having a certain sort of solidarity or support to be able to say like, yeah, you're supposed to ask questions, but you're also supposed to be able to be like, no, I just feel dumb right now. And so it's just understanding, yeah, like this is just what working is. This is your day to day, like just be in it.
Thanks for sharing. I would say we all should normalize the feeling that we don't know anything. I mean, that's true for graduate school too. Don't you agree, Han? Do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, that is very true. Imposter syndrome is real. So yeah, it is very. I don't know what it feels like when I was undergrad, but yeah, going up here, going to grad school, I started to feel like, yeah, maybe I should have known this better. Or sometimes you do feel like, why I do not know this, but it does happen all the time, basically. So it's nothing to worry about. But for what I did I'm currently as a grad student, so I have to TA and RA, basically just doing research and also doing teaching in the classes. So depending on which school you go or what kind of offer letter you have, you might not need to do any of these, or maybe you just have to do one of those. So what the TA I'm doing is just teaching intro classes. So I have to do classes every week, and then probably around 30 to 70 people, depending on the semester. And enrollment is low recently because of COVID. And then the RA is just basically doing my research or any additional research that is required to do, depending on the advisor. And then so because I started with a master's, I'm currently in a master's, so it might be different for people that wants to do for PhD, but I wouldn't assume too much of a difference because it's still graduate school. It's just mostly depending on the school. If let's say you're going to a private school or a public school, you might get different amount of funding, different amount of workload, and basically different environments. And then so going through grad school is a little bit difficult sometimes because I graduated as a geology major, so I don't really have a lot of heavy math intensive classes. So sometimes, and I'm currently doing a geophysics major for my master, so that sometimes it's going to get a little bit tough. So I just have to do more work and like understanding why the math, or just basically any more geophysics that I need. But I know a lot of my friends too, we all have the same thing where you come from different schools, different background, everybody have different knowledge basically. And so depending on where you're going, you might not feel this way, but ultimately everybody feels some way in a part where they might know this very well. They might not know something really good, but that's how when you meet people in your grad school or in your workplace, then you start exchanging knowledge. Then you start learning new things. So basically, yeah, that's how I overcome the struggle. Basically, just to talk with people, knowing people, and just learning from people. Yeah.
How about Michael? What's your daily life experiences working with FDA?
Yeah. So, some of you might be wondering, what does FDA possibly have anything to do with geology? And the answer is, my background is in water chemistry, and at the FDA, I work in the Center for Veterinary Medicine. And so before a new drug, a drug product like, tick medicine that you would give your dog maybe, before that can be approved, the company has to show that there's no environmental impacts. And one of the ways they do that is water quality studies, to make sure like the drug product doesn't have any effect on, different indicator species and things like that. So that's sort of how that relates there. There's a lot of chemistry involved. Currently, I'm working on a model that shows how these chemicals move throughout the environment, which has a lot of things you might learn in Dr. Prestigard's geomorphology class or something like that. It involves some coding, some chemistry, some geology processes, and things like that. That's just one of the things I do a lot at both this job and at my previous job at the environmental consulting company. A lot of it has to do with learning and understanding regulations, which it sounds like Sona also has to do a lot of. I know that for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessment work, which I know a lot of geology students, go to after graduating. There's a lot of regulations to keep in mind, a lot of Safe Drinking Water Act, Clean Water Act. There's a thing called ASTM standards, which is more of a regulation, but you have to make sure that your work and what all the different entities are doing fall within the regulations and are following them correctly. So I guess to answer Dr. Piccoli's message in the chat, a skill that I wish I acquired more as an undergraduate is learning, at least how to read and interpret different laws and regulations in the context of geology, or the wells, or safe drinking water, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I think we already passed the first half of the panel, and I will leave the floor open to the audience. You can either raise up your hands or leave the questions in the chat. And just to follow up with Michael's response to Phil's question, I may let Sona and Han to answer that question as well. So what skills do you wish that you acquired in school that will better prepare you for your current job or graduate school?
So at least for my experience for my grad school, so let me say what has prepared me good first. So the one that prepared me well is because I want to do research. So the thesis did help me a lot. So the thesis just made me focus on like, do I really want to do this or not? So that kind of expanded and then as you do more research and you talk to more people, or just along the lines, time goes on, you know what you like better. But for the things that I wish I know or what to be more prepared, it really depends on how the situation is. Because for me, I personally would hope to have talked to more people, basically like the grad students there, because I didn't really know the application process of applying to graduate school. Like, for example, when should I do for housing, or when should I talk to grad students there or things like that. Just the small things of applying to graduate school is just, you never really talk about it because it's something so small. But when you think about it, it's all these small things that accumulates and makes things more worrying for people. So like for me now, applied to my PhD, I know somewhat better to what to do, when to do things. So that the transition did kind of smoothen things out. I was sending emailing, asking for things rather than getting a response from someone else. So yeah, so basically I would just hope to know what there's small tiny details or experiences, basically talk to more graduate students on, I wish I've talked to more graduate students on applying for graduate school, like what are the things they know or shouldn't or don't know, then they wish they had known better.
Sona, how about you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, the really like useful thing about undergrad was that it taught you like an approach to problems. So even though like I came in having to learn all this stuff, it wasn't so overwhelming because it's like, okay, well, I do know how to like study something. I do know how to take notes. I do know like how I can learn best. So it's like even when my boss is just firing off in like a lecture for the next 2 hours, I'm not like so stressed out that I have to catch every single detail. And I think our undergraduate program did a good job where it's just like a great background. So I was never like just totally lost about what was happening. What I kind of wish I knew more about was just some of the areas that in undergrad I didn't think were like important, or that like I didn't like geophysics because I was never saw the map. And so now trying to learn about like the engineering side and like it's more like concrete applications of geology when I'd mostly kind of spent my time doing like geochem or like yeah, even the environmental courses I took that were focused on water, it was like water chemistry. So it's kind of just trying to integrate some of the more that like ivory tower knowledge into like what's going on, brass tacks here. And also one thing that is a major asset that I do wish I had like more background on is modeling, because that's like, you have the modeling guy in our department, and he has his niche because he has this like great wealth of knowledge. And so they'll pay for our courses to just like go through these week, 3-week, month-long seminars, but it really like takes the time to kind of get in that mode and be like, okay, I'm like figuring out the parameters. And once you kind of, it's like one thing to do the punch card, but it's another thing to like figure out like all the stuff that goes into the tool. And so that right now is kind of like where I'm trying to apply my energy and like figure it out. But it's definitely easier in undergrad when it have a structured course around it. So I guess it's like part of, you don't know what's going to be important until you kind of end up somewhere. And also it's just like figuring out what you like enough to like try to get good at.
Can I follow up on 2 of those points? Sona, are you talking about groundwater and contaminant modeling?
Yeah, the like thing attached to my section is the groundwater modeling center, and it's just one guy who's running all the models.
Yeah, so that is a comment we've heard before. And there was a push a few years ago, about 3 years ago, we have an alum that has his own oil company that offered to, an offer that never came through actually, with some software, some high-level software to be able to do that. So we have heard that before. And that's something that I will bring up with some folks here. Michael, you came from a very different discipline in some aspects. I know, I don't know what courses you took over there in ENSP. Did you happen to take the environmental law course? And was that a useful entity for you in terms of filling out, remediation reports, that sort of thing? Was that useful to you?
Yeah, it was
If you
certainly. I did. Yeah, it was definitely useful for like the surface water side of things, which is a huge field, but not, in my experience, not a lot of people I know have gone into it. What a lot of people, I think what would be really useful is, when I was job searching the first time, a lot of jobs I ran into were these, I know I keep saying this, but phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessment companies. And, that's where, a commercial property, something like a hotel or office building, is looking to work with the bank to get like a nice loan or something. And before that happens, they have to make sure that all of the groundwater, all of the oil tanks, all of the maybe underground petroleum, whatever it is, asbestos, radon, lead paint. I didn't know anything about that, and they had to teach me on the job. And learning on the job is more difficult than learning in school sometimes. So I think if something, I know that especially in this area, since it's the DC, Baltimore, DMV area is exploding with like population. If there was maybe like a class on that, I know it's not like specifically hard geology based, but a lot of physical scientists go that direction from what I know. So maybe something like that, something like, I know another alumni that I know does a lot of things with wells and like oil wells. I don't know anything about regulations on that. So maybe like something like that could help. Just because everything we do works within the framework of, laws and regulations. So even if it's a class, like maybe just interpreting it, I think that would be really helpful, especially to get the reading comprehension skills, not just the math and science required.
Thank you, both of you.
Thanks. Do we have questions from the audience, especially if you are undergrads? Or since Phil is here, and the Phil is very open to all different kind of suggestions in order to make the undergraduate program at UMD better. I was thinking, right, when you're searching for a job or even doing job at your current position, what do you think the UMD Geology undergraduate program could do better in terms of introducing resources, preparing specific skills, adding more courses, stuff like that? What do you think we could do better for the future undergraduate students?
I have a something that I thought of just off the top of my head. I think we went over it a couple times already, but I remember there being like a weekly Friday seminar where people from different universities would come and present their research, which I thought was great. It shows what the science is out there, where it's going, new things that students can learn. I think if there was something maybe similar where instead of people from academia came, if people from the industry and government came, I don't know the exact percentage of people who go from undergraduate to graduate school or academia. But I guess if there's a large enough percentage that go to industry or government, it may be helpful, like to invite them to do like what we're doing today, to tell them talk about their experience, what they do, how they got there, a diverse way, just so people, undergraduate students or even graduate students can get a sense of, what's next, where can I go next, and how can I get there? I think that might be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, sorry. I agree with Michael. So that's one thing I learned after coming to California here, especially my institution, where we have most people for our grad program they have work in industry. So there's a lot of things that I didn't know I didn't know. So it was like I don't really know like how much of an industry, how big of an industry there is, especially in California, because of the regulations. They're so much stronger, and there's a lot of people that's working in industry more than I would say maybe academia. So so one thing I will hope to just maybe be exposed to the different types of jobs, or just say, having a seminar from people in industry if they can, that's really good. So I'm assuming that they have time based on that. But regardless, it's just like, I would say that having exposure on both sides, academia and industry, it would be great. And something for like me, I was just like hoping to do a research so I could maybe go to an industry or companies kind of research to do things like that. So another thing I realized, especially for myself, is just if let's say I want to do for a grad program or anything like that. So sometimes I feel shy or afraid because I'm an undergrad or even just started as a grad student. So there are a lot of times that I do hope sometimes I do hope for myself to voice out all these things, but sometimes I just didn't because I just don't know how to approach someone, let's say the speaker, something like that. So I've never, for this times I remember being a seminar, I've never really had the courage or things like that to just, hey, can I ask you a question to the speaker? So I do hope maybe in the future or something like that, it's like, can we open a panel, let's say to the undergrads, something like that. Just something small, just like maybe that will help undergrads. So just because sometimes you hear all the questions that's really, really detailed. It's like, oh man, all these people know what they're doing, but I don't. I just close myself back in. So sometimes I just feel that way, especially for myself.
Agree. We should do better at that. Sana?
Yeah, I think one more thing that I've been thinking about is like just being able to do more in terms of hard skills, because Maryland doesn't have a lot of opportunities to do like internships or like not a lot of places to go in the field. So my job, it's like the longer you're there, right, you have to like carve this like, position for yourself, or like you get the most praise when you're doing the job that like other people can't do. And for some, it was like modeling or like bringing the engineering knowledge, but other parts of it were like Excel or GIS. Or just like getting really into like one kind of niche and like knowing about that. And so while there's like kind of this broad exposure in undergrad, I feel like there wasn't like I didn't know how important it was. In fact, like I thought, geochem was like this foundational kind of knowledge, but like I didn't like take it further to like learn R because I wasn't super interested in that like aspect of modeling. But I think maybe just like trying to have an emphasis on like these like tangible things you can take away. And sometimes it was these like small projects we did in classes or things that we only did for a semester that turned out to be really relevant or really useful. And those are some of the things that like got me these jobs, to say, oh, I'm familiar with this, like I at least know what it is. And so just be able to take that further beyond just like a broad overview, I think would have been like one thing to get ahead.
Thanks for sharing. I think those are really good suggestions. In fact, we are actually working on to bring in a different perspective of career choice since this semester, trying to bring in alumni who not only graduate from, who not only pursue academic degree, but also in different sector of the industry, government, or academia, and then trying to hear about what they are doing, what's their suggestion, and how we can learn from those. Thanks for sharing. And then we have one questions from Justice. Justice, do you want to read out your own questions?
Sure, I would love to. You guys hear me? So my question was, are there any bad habits? And wow, I really kind of messed that up. Oops, sorry, guys. I'm like multitasking. But my question was essentially, are there any bad habits in terms of like problem-solving skills and team collaboration that you sort of had to unlearn as you transitioned from being an undergraduate academic to being an industry or being a graduate academic?
I guess I'll go ahead. Yeah, those are two great questions. One of the most important things I've had to learn since I graduated is team collaboration. Like, you know, a lot of the work I do is pretty individual, but it's based on team decisions. So, you know, the FDA called high performance organization, which is a very flat organization. You know, everyone has an equal say. Doesn't matter about your seniority. Doesn't matter about what degree you have or anything like that. But when I worked at the private company, it was very vertical. So, you know, the boss lays down what the boss wants, and the people at the bottom didn't really have a say. So one of the hardest things to do is navigate not only the different ways of management styles, but even just the one you're in, you know, at the time. And I think that takes experience. That might be another thing to add to Dr. McCauley's list of suggestions is, you know, how to work within a collaborative team. It's not easy. It's definitely a skill to learn and to practice. Yeah, and I think for the bad habits, I'm not really sure about that. You know, the scientific method is pretty solid. But one of the things that I was sort of surprised about just going into private industry is how strict deadlines are, and how money based a lot of them are. You know, decisions made by private companies are based on money, obviously. So just something to be aware of, like wherever you go next is, at least for me, when I graduated, I had a very idealistic look at the world, which I still have, but you know, you have to be realistic, like how your particular industry operates, you know, why it operates, you know, and where you fall within that, I guess.
Thanks. How about Sana?
Yeah, I guess I have a different experience in government because things go really slow. So the big thing is that's like different from undergrad is like finding your motivation because you don't have grades and you don't really have like you know, any huge negative consequence going down your back. So you have to figure out why you like coming to work and why you're doing something and why it matters. And sometimes it's not even the most immediate thing. Like you're just kind of approving a permit or letting someone drill. But like you have to at least find something that you enjoy in the process, or like work with your teammates or doing something collaborative. And that way you can like figure out what matters and adjust your pace. Because if you work too hard or too fast, you're going to burn out and they're just going to give you more work. It doesn't run out. But you also don't want to go too slow because then you're just, you know, you're feeling unfulfilled at work. So part of that was just like feeling out what pace feels good for you and like what's something that like supports your teammates as opposed to like just kind of coming to these meetings and listening and not saying anything. And the other thing was like, yeah, taking up space because you're really like you're a big member of the team. Like, you know, no one really is any kind of expert in the sense of they were just here longer than you, but you know they're also counting on you. And so the first time I came into the office, I was like trying to have these one-on-ones with people, and I was like really nervous. So I asked people about like the culture, and everyone has this different perception of what's going on. So you're never gonna like have this like one right way of looking at things. But some people were really uptight, and they're like, "I'm here to, you know, just make a name for myself, be a professional, move out to some better location in a few years, whatever. And I got really psyched out, but yeah, I mean, most people are just in here for a long haul. And so when they come to work, like, that's also a good place to like talk and socialize and like just feel things out. So you get pretty far just being nice to people. The other thing that was like kind of a thing to learn was chasing communications through government, because it's not just like someone else's responsibility or like, oh, can I get my advisor to connect me with this person? You're just like trying to follow a thread, and if someone doesn't respond, that's like, you know, where the slowdown in government comes from. So it's like we're trying to hold ourselves to these deadlines, but also like people just don't respond to you or forget to talk back or whatever. And yeah, it's really just being insistent about that instead of being like, oh, well, like I have other things to do. It's just like, yeah, figuring out like what's your job and like, what's really important to how you work was kind of its own process in learning.
Yeah, so for unlearn, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, as a grad student, pretty much I'm going through undergrad like an environment, but definitely more somewhat different. It's just the people you're meeting with are depending, let's say because I'm doing a master's, depending on the people you're with or in the school environment. Some people are doing a master's for industry job, not as necessarily academia. So who you're working with is they have a different kind of objective and perspective on things. So I definitely learned a lot of different perspective from different people, especially with my current institution. Most people would go to industry. So that's where I kind of learned from them where what I should have learned, or not should have learned, but what I've not learned, I'm learning it now. So that's something I learned a lot, just like different perspective from different people and different objectives, like not understand why people want to do industry or not understand why people are saying this or focusing on this part of life, basically. So that's something I really learned a lot. It's not necessarily every school have that kind of environment, and depending on what program you're doing too.
Thank you so much. You guys are really helpful. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from you guys. And I hope this is really the information that we shared here can be inspiring and also potentially super helpful for current undergraduate students. I wish their experience can guide you and then help you to think through where you want to go next after your graduation. So because we have a hard cutoff at 1 o'clock and we only have 2 minutes left. If there are any last minute questions, feel free to ask. Now you only have 2 minutes. And I'm sure that, do you guys mind if I share your email information to the current undergraduate student? And then if they want to follow up with any questions, can they just email you? Cool. See, this is why you need to networking. Just reach out to all the alumni and they're willing to help. Thank you everyone for attending, and I will follow up and hopefully you guys have a lovely day.